All right, my fellow pilots, good morning. The Airline Pilots Association International is often described as an organization of pilots, run by pilots, for pilots, with a democratic structure that encourages member group independence, flexibility, and individual input. The Board of Directors meeting last fall was a prime example of this. I think it's accurate to say that over those 4 days last October, we experienced the democratic process in action firsthand. During the meeting, board members adopted a number of strategic plan priorities that will define the association going forward. I'd like to focus on those priorities related to ALPA finances and the MCF. First, the board reaffirmed ALPA's support for implementing Constitution and bylaws and administrative policy manual changes that create a fair and equitable dues structure and ensure the association's continued financial strength and future viability. One of the changes the board adopted was the reduction of the dues rate for all active members. Beginning January 1st, 2014, the dues rate will be 1.90%, reduced from 1.95%. This was made possible due to the initiatives the association and your pilot groups have implemented to save hard-earned dues money, exercise greater financial discipline, and work more efficiently. While the current dues rate has been in place since 1994, when this change goes into effect next year, dues for active members will be the lowest ALPA pilots have paid since 1985. Let me say that again. Dues will be the lowest ALPA pilots have paid since 1985. The board also voted to eliminate the exemption of pilot wage deferrals into U.S. 401k or Canadian registered retirement savings plans from income subject to dues. As you'll recall, the original proposal, as approved by this body last September, was to eliminate the exemption effective January 1st, 2014. At the Board of Directors meeting, Delegate Committee 4 discussed and debated this issue, formerly known as Agenda Item 17, at length. And then we debated it some more. And then we debated it even further. Representatives for pilot groups large and small, those with defined contribution retirement plans and those without, those with multiple retirement plans or only one, were all given the opportunity to voice their concerns, their viewpoints, and to offer alternative proposals. Further deliberation took place on the floor when the agenda item was put to the board for a vote. As a result of the collaborative efforts among pilot leaders, a compromise was reached and adopted by a large majority that creates a fair and equitable dues structure for all of our members. That, my fellow pilots, is democracy in action. Starting January 1st, 2014, the exemption for 401k and RRSP deferrals from income subject to dues will be eliminated. However, for 2014, an MEC whose pilots are currently eligible for the exemption will have the option to defer the elimination of the exemption for its pilots until January 1st, 2015, by using a portion of its MEC funds to help fund shared union resources during 2014. Your MECs have until June 30th of this year to make this election via MEC resolution. That gives your MECs time to make a decision and your payroll department's time to work with ALPA's financial department to implement the new dues calculation for your pilot groups. Soon, the finance department will reach out to you and coordinate the communications to your company's payroll departments about this new dues calculation. Also during the meeting, the Board of Directors acknowledged that the Major Contingency Fund continues to be one of ALPA's most important strategic and financial assets. In adopting Agenda Item 17, the board endorsed initiatives to protect and enhance the MCF. For example, we will continue to pursue budgeting practices and policies to reduce the demands on and improve the funding of the Major Contingency Fund. Additionally, during the annual budgeting process, we will allocate excess budgeted dues income to the MCF or for other strategic purposes such as Kitty Hawk, our captive insurance company. Another policy change approved by the Board of Directors relates to modifying the threshold for calling a special MEC meeting by the MEC when it has received contingency fund funding. The revision to policy will require a written request from a majority of the MEC in such cases. By allowing this practice, MECs will be able to conserve their resources while maintaining the flexibility to continue to represent their pilot groups effectively. One final change was made by you at the executive board meeting right here last fall, and it's another example of our democratic process in action. After careful review of a recommendation from the Special Committee for Finance, Structure, and Services to phase out certain non-status representatives, the Executive Council submitted to you a modified recommendation, which is the one that you took action on. Under this revised policy, ALPA recommends MECs adopt practices that encourage flight pay loss for MEC officers, MEC members, and committee members who are necessary to conduct business of the pilots appropriately. In addition, an MEC that has received contingency fund funding is prohibited from paying flight pay loss for non-status reps to attend an MEC meeting for 3 consecutive months from the time they received that supplemental funding from the contingency fund. Now, I'd like to review ALPA's finances, the progress that we're making, and the outlook for the future. No financial briefing could be complete without the obligatory eye chart, and I offer that for your consideration at this time. The primary result of 2012 shows an operational deficit on a consolidated basis of $2.8 million, which is less than the previous year, a good indication that we are trending in the right direction. Expenses related to mergers and bankruptcies continue to drive our deficit. The good news, however, is that we have negotiated reimbursements from airlines for many of these expenses, and as we receive those reimbursements, we'll continue to move forward in a positive trend. Our budget for 2013 reflects a 2.7% increase in dues revenue over the 2012 budget. It takes into account pilot contracts at Delta, Air Transat, Air Wisconsin, AirTran, ATI, Canadian North, Commuter Air, Hawaiian, Jazz, KFC, Spirit, and Transstates. Now I'd like to note a few items in the A&S budget for 2013. Within this budget, we continue to focus our resources on initiatives that are tied directly to ALPA's strategic plan. For example, we have increased funding to achieve our legislative goals in government affairs, continue to consolidate IF-ALPA activities, and are now publishing 12 issues of our award-winning Airline Pilot magazine. We also continue our commitment to pay a share of our Kitty Hawk premium payments from the A&S account. We have again allocated $500,000 out of the A&S account that would have otherwise come out of the MCF. The MCF balance through the first quarter of 2013 of $43 million is in line with the forecast presented to you last fall. While we saw higher than forecasted investment returns, those were offset by increases in litigation expenses. As I mentioned earlier, we expect to make up some of that through reimbursements from airlines related to specifically the Eagle bankruptcy negotiations, the ASA and ExpressJet merger, and the United Continental merger, which are all expected to generate surpluses for those MECs. I would also like to note that those surpluses will repay monies funded by the MCF at those MECs. This year, for the first time, we allocated an additional $200,000 off the top of dues income that will go directly into the OCF operating fund, and that money will then be incorporated into MEC budgets. The operating fund provides supplemental funding to MECs with 1,000 or fewer pilots and those who have pilots with an average annual earnings of $75,000 or less. As you can see from this chart, our OCF balance in 2013 continues to trend in a positive direction. Thanks to your continued focus on financial discipline, our current balance in the OCF is approaching levels that we haven't seen since the early 2000s. This ensures that resources will be available to help our pilots to achieve improved contracts. Acclaimed science fiction writer H.G. Wells once said, "Adapt or perish. Now as ever is nature's inexorable imperative." This philosophy, when carried out through the democratic process, is what distinguishes ALPA's approach to facing challenges. It starts again with that strategic plan, a plan that continues to evolve even at its most routine and pragmatic levels. Indeed, we need to constantly reflect upon the goals and objectives that we set for ourselves and to move this profession forward for the benefit of the members we were elected to represent. And it is precisely our disagreements about what this union should look like that makes our sometimes messy democratic process worthwhile. Looking forward, we continue to stabilize our finances, build our reserves, and practice financial discipline, all to advance the goals for the association and our members. As the voice for professional pilots in the United States and Canada, ALPA must continue to adapt and evolve for the benefit of our profession, and most importantly, for the more than 50,000 pilots that we represent each and every day. The policy changes adopted by the Board of Directors last fall epitomized how effective the combination of an adapt or perish mentality coupled with our democratic process can be to effect positive change for our pilots. This approach will help ensure that ALPA will be well positioned to meet the challenges of the future. And I thank you for your time.